Hello, it's Ed. Thanks for joining me. Hope you're well. Today is one of the hottest days of the year in the UK. We're in the middle of June and it's a scorcher, which is a really nice thing to say because it has been pretty horrible weather recently, but not today. And so I'm going out into the countryside to try and get some nice pictures. And I'm going to try and stay shaded so I don't get too hot. I'm going to wander down this canal to Buxworth Basin, which is one of my favourite spots to travel to. And I like to do it at least once a year. And today I'm going to do it with the Canon RT 50mm lens, and I've got an orange filter on here. I'm travelling light, so I've just got the one lens, but I've got the orange filter on there because I want to try and make the skies a bit more dramatic. I want to differentiate between the foliage a little bit better than you can do with just ordinary black and white film. Obviously, if I was going to shoot digital, I'd just shoot it in colour, convert it to black and white and use the filtering that you get by altering those colour tones that way. But I love film. I'm shooting film. In fact, I'm shooting Kentmere 200 film today because it is lovely and I don't need to worry about 400, 800 speed on a day like this. And I'm just going to see what I can get. But the learning point of today, and I like to try and learn something, teach something, find out something new on each shoot. What I'm going to focus on today is the importance of getting just one image that you can work on. Obviously, I'm going to try and shoot 36 bangers, but when I get back and I've slept on it, I've given myself time to forget the day and look at the photographs fresh, I'm going to just try and pick out one photo to really work on. And that way, I hope that I will get an absolutely fantastic image. Obviously, I'm not going to throw the others away. They're going to go into the archive. I'm going to work on them another time. But rather than diluting my effort across a whole roll, or maybe 5 or 6 pictures, I'm just going to pick out one. I'm going to do lots of work on it and I'm then hopefully going to print it and get a really nice print for posterity. But the first thing I need to do is load up this film. I need to find somewhere shaded, and I also need to get on the sunglasses because it's not the weather for these. If I wear those, I'm going to burn my eyes out. So you'll have to bear with me, lack of eye contact today. I know it's a terrible thing on YouTube not to be able to see your eyes, but for my health and safety, right, let's crack on, find somewhere to load up, get taking pictures. And so yeah, I loaded the camera with Kentmere 200 and set everything to aperture priority, and off I went down the towpath. So I'm shooting on aperture priority, at least to start with, because I'm not going to have to worry about there not being enough light and getting slow shutter speeds. So I'm going to pick the aperture that suits the subject that I'm taking a picture of. I've also set the exposure compensation to +1, and that's because although the TTL metering does take into account the fact there's less light coming into the lens, it doesn't calculate exactly the right amount. So giving it that one extra stop, I think, will really benefit it. So I think I found a nice spot for my first picture. Looking out over the valley here, and there is a viaduct with trains going over it. Now, I've shot this before, but never with the orange filter, and I'm hoping it will cut through some of the haze that we get because it is mid-morning. We're way past golden hour. We're a long way from golden hour, I should imagine. I'm hoping I will be done and gone before that time. Much as I'd love to stay late, other things to do. But I reckon if we can get that viaduct, particularly with the train going across it, that will make a lovely image. So let's give it a go. And yes, I don't think that's a bad result straight out of the can. I'm going to show you the pictures as we go along rather than just waiting to the end and showing you the best one. But what you're seeing here is just the image with basic processing, scanning the negative with my 5D Mark II as always, and then putting it through Adobe RAW. I'm not doing dodging, burning, cropping. Those are all the things that I'm going to save for the one image that I'm going to work on. I think the orange filter has made a little bit more detail in the sky, has darkened it a bit. It was a very bright sky, and so it's not as dramatic an effect as I thought there was going to be, but it is there. I think if I'd shot it without the filter, it would have been pretty much white sky. I'm shooting with the RT today, and one of the reasons for that is it's got that very quiet shutter because there's no mirror. If you watch the video about the pellicle, you'll know all about that. So I don't feel like I'm disturbing the peace and quiet of this tranquil walk. It's also a bit lighter because it hasn't got all the gubbins inside it that the EOS 1 has, which is my other go-to film camera for serious photography, not street photography. When I go street, I tend to use a compact. But yeah, it's perfect for that. And obviously it has the interchangeable lens, even though I've only got the one lens with it. And yeah, it's a really good tool for the job. And it's so ergonomic. I love the grip on it. I love the way it handles. And it's just easy to have by my side as I wander around, just swinging at the end of an arm. I don't feel tired by it, even in this heat. So I think there's a nice reflection picture just over here. But I really need to get down low to make sure that I get as much of a symmetrical composition as I can. And yes, I think getting down low is really important here. You've got the parallel lines, you can see top and bottom. And when I actually looked at the negative, I couldn't work out which way up it was initially, but that is the right way up. Kentmere 200 is a really contrasty film, and this is pretty much how it came out of the camera scan. So yeah, really pleased with that. Will it make the final cut? We will have to wait and see. I haven't shot black and white for a while. I do see myself more as a colour photographer, certainly with my street work, but I enjoy black and white, and I like developing, processing myself, which I can't do with colour. I haven't got the facilities and I haven't really got the skills. I've never been taught how to do it, and I wouldn't feel confident. Maybe I'll go and try it at the community darkroom sometime. But shooting black and white, it does give me that opportunity to think in black and white, and I think that's an interesting point, because I've seen other videos on YouTube recently talking about how it's easier to shoot black and white because you can just think in black and white. You can think about form and shape and not worry about colour. Now, that's true if you are shooting with a digital camera, which gives you a black and white preview. But I think it's kind of misleading for those of us who either stick with the colour preview or use a film camera which doesn't give you a black and white preview, because then you have to think about how it will look in black and white. You've got to imagine it in black and white. You don't see it in black and white and think, oh great, there's no distracting colours. You've actually got to pre-visualise it and imagine what it's going to look like. Yes, you can think, oh, don't have to worry about those splashes of colour, they're not going to come out, but you do have to wonder how that colour will render as a shade of grey. And it's particularly relevant today when I'm shooting with a filter, which will obviously change how colours appear. So yes, these are the things you have to think about. It may be easier to work in black and white if you are shooting with a digital camera with a black and white preview, but I wouldn't say it's easier to shoot black and white per se. But that is a personal opinion. I'd be interested to know what you think, actually, because again, I'm not necessarily right. That's just how I feel about it, and I like to share my thoughts in the hope that people will get back to me and tell me what they think, and then I might change my opinions. I might learn something, because as I keep going on about in all my videos, life is just a learning experience, isn't it? You've got to try and learn as much as you can. Learn two things, so that the one you've forgotten during the day is not a great loss. Right, I can see some geese up ahead. That might make an interesting shot if they're not too wild. And they were quite wild. Here is one of the two shots that I got, and it's a little bit dark because I think the camera was fooled by the bright sky, and even with the +1 EV that I'd put on it, it was still a little bit dark in the foreground. But I think it's something that could be brought back. It's just whether it's worth bringing back, but it's nice to see a little bit of action on the towpath there. And the second picture, I tried to get down to goose eye level. I don't know if you've seen the video I've done about shooting from ground level yet. It was just a little mini video that I put together just to talk about shooting at ground level. And this was an example of me doing that here to try and get up close and personal with the goose. But unfortunately, it's, as you can see, blurred. And I think it was both too low a shutter speed because of the +1 EV, meaning that the camera was selecting a shutter speed that was slower than I would have probably hoped for. And also, the autofocus is just not fast enough on this camera to react to what's going on. Modern cameras, the autofocus just snaps on, but an old camera like the RT, it really does take a moment, even in bright light, when there's a subject that's closer than it's expecting. So what could have been a really nice picture of a goose pecking at me is a bit of a blurry mess, but I'm glad I took it anyway. And after taking that picture, off I wandered along the towpath again. So I've just walked up from the canal, which you can see down there, because there's a crossing there, and you don't often get these crossings, so I think it might make a nice shot. Yeah, not as nice a shot as I thought. I couldn't really get wide enough with that lens to take in the whole crossing and the height of the building. So I had to decide, did I want to go landscape or vertical? The vertical one, you can see the pub, which is called the Crossing there, and there's actually a station platform just to the left, but it's a bit boring, to be honest. Not what I was hoping for. I did go for a landscape orientation shot as well, but from the opposite side of the station, and it gives a bit more context. It shows the hills. I probably should have waited for a train to pass and got a blurred train zooming across the level crossing, but it was a day out and I wasn't going to stand in the heat waiting for that to happen. It was about enjoying the adventure, so I headed back to the towpath and left that for another day. So I'm approaching Bugsworth Basin. I've not actually taken any pictures for about 15 minutes because I bumped into a guy on the towpath and had a really lovely conversation with him about life and what you should do with it. But I am now approaching Tesco's, where I'm going to grab myself something to eat and a drink because, as always, prepared Edward has not brought any water with him. So I'm going to head into the Tesco's, get myself something to eat and drink, and then take the fork back there to Bugsworth Basin and have my picnic before I head back, take some more pictures. Right, I have my lunch and, most importantly, a drink. So I'm going to go and find a nice place to go and enjoy this. So I wandered to Bugsworth Basin, which was absolutely scorching, and there was no real shade anywhere that I could sit down. So I sat on a bench in the middle of the basin in the roasting sun. But it was really nice to have a picnic in the middle of a walk, and I just feel so lucky sometimes that I can actually do this. Being out in the sunshine rather than being stuck in an office, I will just keep doing this as long as I possibly can, because as I was chatting with the guy on the towpath on the way here, life is for living and ticking things off your bucket list, and this is just a wonderful, wonderful day that I may never get to do again, particularly with the number of sunny days we get in England. And I can report that it wasn't a bad sandwich. They were decent crisps, an interesting cheesy flavour, and an ice cold Coke on a day like today. Well, heaven. Right, I'll be back when I finish my lunch. So I'm just wandering down the towpath and I spotted these little gardens that people have made who have boats on the towpath. I wonder if it falls into that idea of alternative use. Now, I don't know if I've mentioned that project on the channel before. It's an ongoing one that brings together lots of other projects that I do, which are all to do with people using spaces that are designed for one thing for something else. And it's quite an interesting one to define, and I still haven't quite got to a complete definition of what I would call alternative use. I think it has to be something where it's something that people want and they create. It's not something permanent, it's not something it's designed for. And I think that's one of those things there. I mean, the reason I'm mentioning it now, those of you who follow the channel have noticed that I won something. I actually finally won something. I won an award, the Critics' Choice Award, for a photo I took. And that was an example of one of the photos from this project that I'm trying to turn into a book, and I will get it done in the end, but I'm still trying to get enough good pictures, enough good examples, and to fill in the holes of things which I know are good examples, but I haven't had the opportunity to actually take a photograph of yet. But yeah, I think maybe that is alternative use. I wanted to get an example of how the orange filter works with foliage and flowers. Now, I haven't spotted any good examples of fresh flowers, but there are these flowers which are colourful against green foliage. So I'm going to take a picture of those and we'll see how that works. And yes, I think you can see that the flowers do stand out well against the green of the hedge behind. I think without the filter, the green hedge would have been brighter relative to the flowers and they would have been lost in the background a bit. Maybe I should have gone for a slightly wider aperture so that I could have brought the flowers more into focus and got a bit closer to them. But I wanted to just test this, and I think it is a point proven. Does it fit into the theme of alternative use? I'll think about it. I've taken a picture of it anyway, and it might be one to add to the collection, but it's in black and white and the project is in colour, so I might have to come back. Anyway, let's crack on. I think I could do with a coffee, and we're heading towards Whaley Bridge now, and I reckon I'll be able to get one there. And I got this picture just on my way into Whaley Bridge as well, and I really like this one. This is one that I would consider for my final cut. It's a really nice canal side shot. Again, no work done on this. This is the contrast of the Kentmere working here, and I think more could be brought out of this picture. I really love the composition and the light and shade here, and there is some sky detail in as well, which is nice. So yeah, definitely one to consider. I grabbed another few pictures by the moorings on the way into Whaley Bridge as well before I got my drink, because there were some really interesting bits and bobs to be seen. One of them was this sign. As you'll probably know, I'm a big fan of cats and I like the idea of an attack cat guarding a boat. And this, one of those things that's just a little bit bizarre, a disco ball hanging from a tree. I like to think of a kind of woodland disco going on at some point in the evening, but there probably isn't. But it's a lovely little ornament. And then when I actually reached the basin, there was just this shot of a couple with their dog and the boat behind. I was just trying to capture the basin. It's not a great one, that, to be honest. I didn't rest a while, I just kept on walking actually rather than getting a drink at this point, and I wanted to get some pictures of the transshipment warehouse, which is where the goods were loaded and offloaded from the boats, but now it has a very different use. The transshipment warehouse has been converted into like an art space and a community space, and there's a nice sort of sculpture of the helicopter that came when the dam collapsed. It was a few years ago now, but I think they're still in the process of repairing it. A dam nearly collapsed just above the village. It's quite a big event in the area at the time, but yeah, it might be worth a picture as well. Yeah, unfortunately this photograph again fell victim to the fact that I should have checked my shutter speed. Because I was at +1 EV and I was shooting into a dark space, even though it was an incredibly bright day, there's a lot of camera shake here and it's an unusable picture. But I did take another from inside the transshipment warehouse pointing out, and here you can see a really interesting sculpture to the right hand side. I don't think that's anything to do with the canal. I think it's more to do with space or something. I don't know. I didn't look at all the captions. Again, not one that's going to make the shortlist for the final cut. But it did inspire me to wander further into Whaley Bridge. So I actually thought, I'm so close to the reservoir, I might as well go and have a look and see what work there is left to do and if they've actually finished the rebuilding of the dam. But it is hot. I never got a coffee in the end. Stopped and got a Powerade. Sorry, I got a Lucozade Sport because I see something cold. I will grab a coffee when I get back to Stockport. So I wandered up to the reservoir and I've actually met another couple of really nice people and had a chat about how things have changed. It's 2019 that the breach took place. But yeah, you can't actually get in at the moment. It's all cordoned off. But there are some fantastic opportunities for photographs, I think. There's some nice little circular mirrors and I'm going to go and take a picture of that. And yeah, I think that makes quite an interesting kind of urban abstract picture. I spent a lot of time shooting urban abstracts back in the day, although it's not something I do so much nowadays. I also shot a portrait orientation version of this, and I prefer that because I like the way you can see the shaft of light coming out. And also if you know where it is, it gives it an extra layer of meaning, which I think is nice. My kind of thing, but probably not for the final cut. So I headed back into Whaley Bridge and I caught a couple of pictures of the village as I was passing through. This one, somebody painting the shop, and another one in the vertical orientation where you can see somebody sheltering in the shade there. I don't know if they were involved and it was their break time or what, but I thought that makes quite a nice little village scene. But again, not one that I think is worth putting on the wall. I was running low on pictures now. I was down to my last 5 or 10 shots. But I had the whole of the journey back along the canal to take some more pictures. And even though I was retreading old ground, I knew there'd be some things that would look different when viewed from the opposite angle. Now, I imagine most people would just walk past this, but I think it's a really lovely geometric. And yeah, not bad. I like the way the light is glimmering off that. I wonder if the filter, it was quite a cheap filter that I bought, the orange filter. It's probably creating some sort of halation there. Maybe if I'd bought the most expensive filter, that wouldn't be the case. But I kind of like it. I quite often put a black mist filter on my digital camera to try and make it look less digital. And I think obviously it doesn't need that when you're shooting film, but I kind of like the effect there. And this one I really like. This was a shot through the trees as I was passing the Tesco again on my way back along the canal. And it's a little walkway that goes up from the car park to the towpath. And I just think the shadows are really good. It's kind of mysterious. I always struggle with shooting in the countryside. I'm much better, I think, at shooting in the city. It's the environment with which I'm most familiar. And I kind of know how to play with the light there. When there are no man-made surfaces and everything is more organic, I do find it harder to get good compositions, but I think this is quite a nice one, using those man-made straight lines amongst the jumble of organic tree roots, tree branches and brush. And this one as well, I really like it. It's a line of geese. It's obviously the time that the young ones are going out onto the water the first time, and there's mum and dad there leading them along, and they're glittering in the light. Lovely, but slightly blurred, and unfortunately that means I can't really consider it for the final cut, but I think it's a really nice picture. I wish I'd got a better version of this, and I wish I'd been able to zoom in a little bit further as well, but it's not the end of the world, is it? And this one, another one which I like, a bit more obvious, but it's definitely a good reminder of a place and time. And I got down as low as I possibly could manage, with my knees being the way they were after such a long walk, so it's quite a nice angle, but again, probably not interesting enough for me to consider for a final print. But as I say, my knees were starting to feel tired. I had put in the miles, and I'm quite glad that that was the last frame on my film. So I am back nearly where I started. I've been walking for 4 hours with a few stops. I have done 14 kilometres, and I'm now at film. So you will have seen a collection of photographs, probably the best ones that I shot. Which do you think is the one that I should turn into a print? Well, I'm going to go back, develop these, and I will tell you when I know myself. Right, let's get back to the studio in Stockport. So by the magic of video, it's now the following day, and here is my contact sheet. I went back to the studio yesterday, developed the negatives, scanned them, had a little look, slept on it, made a decision this morning as to which one I was going to turn into a print. Now, I was a bit torn as to which one to go for. There were 3 or 4 that I thought might be ones to do, but in the end I've opted for this one because my photography is all about people and human interactions, human animal interactions, rather than just static landscape scenes. And I think, although this probably isn't the one that I would be most likely to put on my wall at home, it is the one that I would like to print up and display most. And I also think there is more that I could do with this picture, because if you look at it as it is, straight out of the can, there is a lot of detail that could be brought out. There's some useful cropping that could be done. And I'm going to do that both in a Photoshop version digitally, and I'm also going to do it in an analog version with the darkroom. And I will show you the results of both, and hopefully you'll agree that it is worth doing. So looking at the Photoshop version, the first thing I needed to do was to crop it in. I then needed to do some dodging and burning, and this is just a mock-up of what I did. I was a lot more careful with it when I did the original version, which I will show you at the end. But you can see it brings out all the detail in the foliage. It makes the towpath a lot clearer to see, and you can actually see those geese on the towpath. The next thing to do is to bring the sky back, and the detail was there in the sky, it was just lost, and so a little bit of work on the curves, and you can see the clouds coming into there. Now if I just show you the file that I actually worked on properly a few minutes earlier, you can see that I was able to bring out a lot more detail. The actual face of the person who's walking down the towpath, the expressions on the geese's face almost, and I think that works really well. I might darken it just a little bit, but I think that's a pretty good result using Photoshop. But let's do the analog version. So I put the negative in the negative carrier, put it in the Durst enlarger, and I won't bore you with show you the whole process again because you've seen it all before on this channel. Let's skip to the final product. Okay, so it's had time to dry. We can look at the final analog print. Take it over to the desk, pop it down there amongst all the junk. What can we see? Well, we have lost the sky in that because I'm not a master printer. As I've said many times, I'm still learning. It's a bit pale because the chemicals are past their prime as well. But you can see that it's made a nice image, and I think that is something that I could maybe improve on a little bit and put up as a framed print somewhere in an exhibition. This is not a final result. I need to do it again, but I can see that it is possible to bring out the detail in an analog way without using all the bells and whistles of Photoshop. Just a bit of subtle dodging and burning on here would really improve it, and also if I get some fresh chemicals I'll be able to make a better job. So that's about it for this one. Thank you so much for your company on that wander down the canal. I had a really lovely day out. Hope you enjoyed it too. I'd be interested to know your thoughts about this idea of just picking one photograph out of a session and concentrating all your efforts on getting that one to be perfect. Do you think it's a good idea? Do you think it's a bad idea? please do drop a comment in the comment section below. I always love to hear from you. And also, if you get a moment, do like, share and subscribe if you haven't already, because that really helps me out. But until we meet again, do take care of yourselves. Enjoy what you're shooting. Bye for now.